What we're going to do tomorrow is you obviously see that there's a sine die, a meeting of the Rules Committee with the sine die resolution that's in the Rules Committee, and then we're going to look to amend to try to amend that to reflect redistricting, be a part of our congressional redistricting, be a part of our sine die, and so that will start a process. And that's where we are now, is to give ourselves options in light of the Callais decision and what the Governor McMaster and President Trump has asked of South Carolina. I think is appropriate for us to look at these maps, see if they comply with the current law after the Callais decision, as well as whether we should be reapportioned. And so we're going to have these options, and obviously this is the first step in that process.
Did Trump ask you directly to?
I have not spoken to the president.
Obviously, there's a lot of concern about the fact that this safeguarding American families, Safe Act, several license plates were added to it, and the Senate is to do in our normal wrap-up session.
Well, the primaries for the congressional districts could be delayed under that scenario, but the House districts and the statewide could move forward. So there are many options, and those have not been decided. You got to cross the first step, and the first step is: are we allowed to consider redistricting when we finish our sessions and adjourn sine die? So it has to pass the House by 2/3 votes, and it has to pass the Senate by 2/3 votes. So that when we pass that, then we can figure out where we're going afterwards.
It sounds like we don't really know what direction we could go in if we do have maps. I know there have been proposals that just people have thrown out there, but do we know legally what we could actually do with the 7-0 plan?
Well, we have retained lawyers, and we have lawyers who are looking at the Callais decision and looking at the possibility of redistricting, and is going to advise us on that. So, yes, we will have that, and we'll see where we go from there.
So just to be clear, the House will proceed with redrawing the commission.
We're not saying that. What we're saying is we are going to have the options for us to be able to come back in session and consider redistricting. Again, we got to know if we have the votes in the House. It takes a 2/3 vote, so that is not certain that we have a 2/3 vote over here. Then you go to the Senate; they have a 2/3 vote, so that's not certain that will be met. So we can't even. That right there will stop the whole process. So that's why we got to begin the process.
This rule is vote.
It's in the Constitution.
Okay.
A beautiful person inside and out, well loved by the community.
Well, I mean, again, do we finish a sine die resolution? Do we have a sine die resolution without reapportionment? Then he can't call us back in. If we adjourn sine die, then he's going to have to call us back in because we won't have a budget by then.
Everyone at that school, and it was a crushing blow to the greater city.
I'm having a hard time hearing you with a loudspeaker. You got to remember, I'm hard of hearing.
When the governor released that statement last Friday, he said he wanted the legislature to ensure basically that it was complying with the federal law and the U.S. Constitution.
Right.
The state Supreme Court, well, the state Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court have both said that the map complies with the Constitution. So is there a scenario in which you'll meet in off session to talk about redistricting and decide we already comply, we're not?
Well, yeah, that's speculation. I can't get to what we may do and what we may not do. But yes, the governor has asked us to look at this in light of the Callais decision, and that's what we're honoring that request.
If the primaries for congressional candidates are put on hold, it might be that the candidates have already filed will no longer live in those districts. Will you have to reopen the entire scenario?
Sorry, I have a hard time hearing. You can answer after you heard it.
Obviously, that's speculation. We got to get to that point. We got to get the sine die resolution passed first. That's our first step. In the morning, got to get the Rules Committee to vote to bring it out of Rules Committee tomorrow morning, bring it to the floor. We'll discuss it tomorrow morning on the House floor. We'll take the vote. If we get 2/3 vote, then we'll pass it over to the Senate. They will do the same process. Once we get that sine die resolution, if we get that sine die resolution passed, then we'll go to the next step.
So just to be clear, there is not a promise of the legislature is going to redraw.
There is absolutely no promise whatsoever. We have opened up the process to take a look at the maps. But the first step in doing that is we've got to amend sine die. That will happen tomorrow morning at 9:30 when the Rules Committee meets. If they vote it out, then it will come to the floor, and then once we'll have the discussion on the floor, we will take the vote. We gotta have 2/3. And then if we pass it out, it goes to the Senate, it goes through the same process. We get that step finished, then we go to step 2. So we can't get to step 2 till we get to step 1.
You have supermajorities in both chambers, John. What's the consensus?
We'll just have to let everybody decide. I mean, we talked about it in caucus a little bit today, but we don't know how everybody's gonna vote. That's a decision everybody has to make on this, because, this is something that just all of a sudden appeared on the calendar. We got 5 days left, so we're moving at a rapid pace to try to get to see if we want to do this process. So we've got to get to in 5 days we got to decide whether or not we want to do this process, and that's what we're trying to do right now, is get to the process.
In terms of knowing stuff to know whether you want to get there, have you consulted with the election commission to know how those absentee ballots that have already gone out would be handled?
I don't know about absentee, but there's some military ballots and absentee ballots that are out. Yet the answer to that is yes. But I remind you, there's a statewide election as well that would still go forward, so those would be cast and counted anyhow. But the real issue is whether we get into the early voting, and so that's why if something happens, it needs to occur before the early voting period.
It's not just been a concern about throwing the primary calendar in flux for the congressional races, but it's also been that you all could wind up making the map more competitive for Democrats and it not be a 7-0 straight. So do y'all hold that concern as well?
I mean, obviously, there's a number of scenarios. I mean, we have not gone through the maps. We have just engaged our attorneys to start the process, so we don't know what the maps look like. We don't know whether we can have a 7-0, but we start in the process, and that's what this is about.
All right, we're going to have to wrap up because I think we're going to adjourn in a second, if that's okay. You guys have any comments?
Right.
I have one quick, okay, so obviously SCOTUS has already upheld this map. Is this more of a political question at this point than really a legal matter?
I think you saw that now the Supreme Court in Callais has said that political gerrymandering, partisan gerrymandering is allowed. So is this a political and partisan effort? Yes, I would say it is.
Wasn't that what the current maps already were? That everyone said that under oath as much, that it wasn't race-based.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so nothing's changed.
All right, thank you guys.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Do y'all want to go over to the